So it's nice to get the big picture, and now it's time to look at the state by state. To speak on the Australian scene, please welcome Chris Jones from the Australian Electric Vehicle Association.
Great, well thanks to everyone for coming on, and thanks to Tasmania for putting on such a good show. Yeah, Ben Hur is officially upset. Perhaps not as nervous as the Queenslanders who will be running it next year. So the final name for this is, if you want something done, just do it yourself. So that's kind of what we've been doing, and that's roughly what we've been doing for the last 44 years. So yeah, I'm National Secretary. I've been involved with the AEVA since 2010 when I first decided to build an electric motorbike. Since built another electric motorbike, and that's been heaps of fun. But yeah, got heavily involved with the AEVA from then on in, and yeah, proud to be here, proud to help. So perhaps quite a few AEVA members were a little surprised when the EV Council popped up. We're kind of like, oh hi. So I think it's worth pointing out, yeah, there's a bit of product differentiation here too, I think. We represent the end users, the drivers, the riders, the sailors and the pilots and passengers, the people who actually use the technology. It's ultimately, it's us who buy the product that the EV Council is helping push at that level. So I think we're not trying to, duplicate our efforts. We're all pushing for the same thing. And I think it's extremely important that we maintain that momentum. But what we've always done since 1973 is to provide that friendly forum for anyone who's interested in electric vehicle technology and boats and aeroplanes and e-bikes. That's all part of what we do. And the priority has been to share information, and whether that's through public shows and displays or seminars or conferences like this one. That's what we do, and we really try and let the technology speak for itself to the people, so they can go firsthand, oh, that's what it's all about. We've found that to be extremely valuable. Along with our lived experience, we've got people who've driven from Adelaide and from Newcastle here in Devonport, and they can tell you how much of a challenge it is to do it in a range-limited EV. So when people says, oh, they ask, is it easy to drive your EV across the country? No. It can be done, but it's not easy, and we're all trying to make sure that it just gets easier as we go along. And yeah, I guess advocacy at that practical level. I mean, we've made government submissions to all the same things that Climate Works has been working on too. We're ignored just as much. Pushing for things like vehicle emissions. We didn't even have vehicle emission standards, let alone more stringent ones. So simply introducing them is a big deal. So anyway, we're all pushing for the same thing, and so I guess ultimately what the AEVA does is it represents us, the end users. Some background about the AEVA. Some people might recognise the photo there, but effectively the AEVA is a federation of state branches under a single constitution level. There's a branch in every state, with the exception of the Northern Territory. Each branch elects their own committee, and up to 3 committee members will represent on the National Council, where we discuss things like how we can allocate funds to branches, we manage membership and that kind of stuff. And we can provide that national focus when we make a submission to government or something like that. We did briefly hit 500 financial members of the AEVA. That's gone back down to about 494 now, as a couple of earlier ones lapsed. So renew your memberships if you haven't already done it. So yeah, we're not stonecutters. We don't sit around gothic tables, and we're not a club like that. We are absolutely open. You don't even have to own an EV to be a member. Just take an interest, and that's what we do. Sharing knowledge. So here's just many examples from around the country of what we get up to. This photo here is Electrikhana. Electrikhana has been the most successful thing ever. We would hit up all of the dealerships like Nissan and say, guys, bring an EV out and people can test drive it. And they're like, can you take it for us? Oh. It's just like, and I asked, don't you want to sell them? And then I realised, no, they probably didn't want to sell them. So we had private owners offering up their vehicles to strangers to say, jump in the seat and go for a drive. And they go, wow, that was awesome, I want one now. And so I think we can safely say that Electrikhana in Perth actually drove EV sales until every last EV was bought. And now bring in some more so we can buy some more. But that's a fantastic event. We have stalls and we had access to the RAC's driver training circuit where you could go out and get that lived experience. Presentations on all this good stuff that we're covering today, we give to the public. Leo Kerr does a fantastic service over in Perth. But I've got a photo here of the Queensland branch showing vehicles. This one here was from the ACT. That photo over there of Ted looking quite interested was from our Melbourne AGM. So I mean, we've been talking up the technology and letting people know that it's the way of the future since 1973, and we're going to keep on doing that. Forums, the internet came to Australia in about 2004, I think. And so, no, it was earlier than that, but it was pretty crap. But we set up the AEVA forums, and for the longest time, certainly since 2008, this is where people would talk about their conversion projects or new EVs that are coming up for sale, and lots of discussion about best way to drive them and charge them and live with them. And it's still going, the forum is still going. Recently had an upgrade thanks to our webmaster. So definitely jump on and have a look. There's a lot going on there. It's slowed down a lot since Facebook came along, but it's a far better medium to discuss these kinds of issues. Of course, you can't run anything without a Facebook page these days. So here's some examples of screenshots. So we've got our AEVA main Facebook page with, I think we've got 1,500 followers and growing, which is fantastic. But there are also state branch pages as well. We're all members of the same. You just become a member of all of them and you find out what's going on. We've also got a Twitter account, AEVA_national. We actually had a Twitter account set up in about 2008, but nobody really used it. And then all of a sudden Twitter became popular, so we better start using it now. So a few tweets have already gone out. Thanks, Richard, for setting that up. Jump on, follow it, and keep up to date. But for sure, Facebook is where a lot of our information sharing is happening now. And that sort of took off in about 2015. Although we'd had it in place since 2008, it didn't get a lot of use until recently. One of the things that the AEVA has been involved in for the longest time was converting electric vehicles. You couldn't buy them. You just couldn't go out. If you wanted one, you had to go and do it yourself. You had to build yourself. And the guidelines for how to build a safe electric vehicle in COP14 were drafted with the help of the AEVA. So the policies around, do you use what gauge wire, what colour is it, where can it be in the vehicle, what are the brakes for, all of that stuff is written into COP14, and the AEVA played a leading role in setting that up. So yeah, we've been involved in this stuff for a long time, and there's some fantastic vehicles, and unfortunately the converted vehicles didn't make part of the convoy from the mainland, but yeah, there's one, so that's good. Oh, that's right, yeah. So and we still do that, although conversions aren't happening quite so much these days. That's a bit of a lull, I think, because as soon as these production electric vehicles start getting into RECs, there's going to be some pretty amazing projects being built from the leftover parts, and we're starting to see that happen now. So I'm excited. I can't wait. We've been involved with schools and tastes for the longest time too. So here's just a quick Google image search of the EV Challenge, which is where schools and tech colleges can build these high efficiency vehicles. So it's typically to the young adult crowd. These vehicles, their objective is to travel the furthest distance in the shortest amount of time on a set amount of energy. And so quite a few vehicles are doing some pretty amazing things. And it gets young scientific minds excited about electric vehicle technology. That's something that we've done before and we should do a lot more of. And particularly now that the components that go into them are getting cheaper. I think that's something that schools get excited about because money's always tight. We organise field trips and we do tours. This sea of high vis here is the West Australian branch of the AEVA's visit to the Talison lithium mine. That giant hole in the background is in fact not the lithium mine, that's the tin mine that happens to be on the same site. The lithium mine looks like a small quarry. Yet it provides 1/3 of the world's lithium, and about 75% of the lithium that goes into batteries comes from that one mine in Greenbushes in the southwest of the state. You can walk from one end of the reserve to the other in about a minute. Crazy. So that's been good. Obviously, the South Australian branch got invited to the bus manufacturing facility that was going on in the northern suburbs there, which is awesome. Here's our WA branch doing a tour of the Western Power Control Centre. So Western Power runs the Southwest Interconnected System, so our own little electricity grid. And they were quite kind enough to give us a tour of how they control loads, generators and that kind of stuff. And I've also got a picture there of the Queensland branch. They did a tour of the tritium facility. We were invited for that, but you weren't allowed to take photos, so I couldn't put any photos up there. hopefully James will put some photos up for us. So we do field trips and tours, and we invite anyone to come along with us. You don't have to be a member to come along with them. Just get in touch with the branch and find out, and you can learn firsthand what's going on. So for the last half of the talk, I'll cover some of the grassroots charging infrastructure efforts that have gone in. And I think, obviously we're quite proud of the Electric Highway here in Western Australia because it was the first one that went in. And I really got to point out that although I was quite involved with it, these two amazing women were the ones who kick-started the project to begin with. They said, how hard can it be? Paddy wanted to drive her converted Ford Focus down to Augusta, and there was no charging infrastructure. So we just sat down and wrote down a plan. Let's build it. We pitched the idea to anyone who listened, and the RAC of Western Australia said, oh yeah, we'll have a look at that. About 6 months later, they came back and said, that's actually what we should really be doing. So we'll take it on. And so they funded it completely, and we built the first RAC, the RAC's Electric Highway was the first DC fast charging network in the country. And I think it's widely considered a real tipping point in Australian EV uptake is when a motoring organisation and a big trusted motoring organisation like the RAC gets behind electric vehicles, and they stumped up $1 million to do this. That's when you know that change is happening. So I think that was really exciting. There's the chargers there. Full credit to Joseph Law here. Every single charger in Western Australia has been tested by Joseph. He just loves it. That's the route there, down to Augusta. Of course, we've been involved with rolling out some very basic charging infrastructure, 3-phase sockets. We've been sending these out to roadhouses, and anyone who wants one, we largely get their own electricians to do the installation. But it simply means you can travel anywhere. It'll take a while, but it's better than nothing. And the good thing is that those installations can be upgraded later on. So here's some pictures of around Western Australia. Basically these guys are pioneers driving around saying install a socket and I'll stop there and charge. And they're getting it. We've also got a really good relationship with our monopoly energy provider, Synergy. They work very closely with us on making sure that charging infrastructure goes out where it's needed. So it's been great to have that relationship. Obviously, Queensland, we know that they've got the superhighway plan. There's a charger at Rocky and one in Cairns going in. But, Jeff Johnson and Richard, these guys blazed that trail. They plugged in at every 15 amp socket that was available, and now there's a 3-phase socket there, so it's getting better. New South Wales been doing much the same thing. Greg's been fantastic, driving around testing all of these points, and how you've been lugging those two C-Techs around and charging. It's good effort, man, good effort. And so here's a fine example. Nigel Morris's business, he's just got a little socket there at the front to plug in here. So all that kind of stuff helps. Tassie, obviously we're going to hear plenty about this, some pretty exciting news about charging infrastructure coming in here. Obviously Amber's got the first one in. It's not a fast charger, and we really hope that one day there will be one there, or at least nearby. Obviously you heard a bit about South Australia from Ted, but you know, you can cover the populous parts of the state now. It'd be great to see some more fast chargers going in. And of course, there will be access for Teslas to get to the VFB, the big battery. I believe he came up with a rocket he called it the VFR. So yeah, where can you charge your EV? Well, bloody everywhere. Look, you know, charging infrastructure is not the biggest impediment to EV uptake. It's an impediment, but it's a minor one compared to simply just buy the bloody things. Let me buy one, and then I'll complain about the price. But right now, I can't even buy one. So obviously, PlugShare gets a fair old workout, and I didn't make sure that we cut New Zealand off the map there because they're really showing us up. So thanks for that, and you're happy to take questions.
They won't make it to the CEO either. And of course, Dr. Jones mentioned that the conference is in Queensland next year, a little bit more challenging up there. You're going to have to take shorter trips, right? Because without daylight saving, they're getting an hour less sun in summer. On here, Tasmania, you can get away with that. Yes, and the cows, like, yes, dashboard, that's it. So we'll just trot those jokes out early.